Hello and welcome. My name is Alan, and we are back with more Insurgent Mexico. Last episode, some of the traitors were executed in the hacienda. So, yeah. But let's get into this. Chapter 9, The Last Night. The days at La Cadena were full of color. In the cold dawn, when the river pools were filled or filmed with ice, a trooper would gallop into the great square with a plunging steer at the end of his rope. 50 or 60 ragged soldiers, only their eyes showing between serapes and big sombreros, would begin an amateur bullfight in the roaring delight of the rest of the compañeros. They waved their blankets, shouting the correct bullfight cries. One would twist the infuriated animal's tail. Another, more impatient, beat him with the flat of a sword instead of banderillas. They struck daggers into his shoulders, his hot blood splattering them as he charged. And when at last he was down, they and the merciful knife in his brain, the mob fell upon the carcass, cutting and ripping and bearing off chunks of raw meat in their quarters. Then the white burning sun would rise suddenly behind the puerta, stinging our hands and face, and the pools of blood would, the faded patterns of the serapes, the far reaches of the umber desert glowed and became vivid. Don Petronilo had confiscated several coaches in the campaign. We borrowed them for many an excursion, the five of us. Once it was a trip to San Pedro del Gallo to see a cockfight. Apparently enough, another time, Gino Guareca and I went to see the absolutely rich lost mines of the Spaniards, which he knew, but we never got past Bruquilla. Just lounged in the shade of the trees and ate cheese all day. Late in the afternoon, the Puerta Guard trotted out to their post, and the late sun, soft on their rifles and cartridge belts, and long after dark, the detachment, relieved, came jingling in out of the mysterious dark. The four peddlers whom I had seen in Santo Domingo arrived that night. They had 4 burro loads of machuche or macuche to sell the soldiers. "It's Meester," they cried when I came down to their little fire. "Que tal, Meester? How goes it? Aren't you afraid of the Colorados?" "How is business?" I asked, accepting the heaped up handful of macuche they gave me. They laughed uproariously at this. Business? Far better for us if we had stayed in Santo Domingo. This tropa couldn't buy one cigarro if they clubbed their money. One of them began to sing that extraordinary ballad, the Morning Song, to Francisco Villa. He sang the verse, and then the rest, and then the next man sang a verse, and so on around, each man composing a dramatic account of the deeds of the great captain. For half an hour I lay there, watching them as they squatted between their knees, serapes draped loosely from their shoulders, the firelight red on their simple, dark faces. While one man sang, the other glared upon the ground, serape in composition. Here is Francisco Villa with his chiefs and his officers who came to saddle the short horns of the Federal Army. Get ready now, Colorados, who have been talking so loud, for Villa and his soldiers will soon make of your hides. Today has come your tamer, the father of rooster tamers, to run you out of Torreon to the devil with your skins. The rich with all their money have already got their lashing, as the soldiers of Urbina can tell in those Maclovio Herrera. Fly, fly away, little dove, fly over all the prairies, and say that Villa has come to drive them all out forever. Ambition will ruin itself, and justice will be the winner, for Villa has reached Torreon to punish the avaricious. Fly away, royal eagle, these laurels carry to Villa, for he has come to conquer braves in all his bravo in all his colonels. Now your sons of the mosquito, your pride will come to an end. If Villa has come to Torreon, it is because he could do it. Viva Villa and his soldiers, viva Herrera and his gente. You have seen, wicked people, what a brave man can do. With this now, I say goodbye. By the rose of Castile, here is the end of my rhyme to the great General Villa. After a while, I slipped away, and I doubt if they even saw me go. The song they sang around their fire for more than 3 hours. But in our cuarto there was other entertainment. The room was full of smoke from the fire on the floor, though through it I dimly made out some 30 or 40 troopers squatting all sprawled out full length, perfectly silent, as Silveira read aloud a proclamation from the governor of Durango forever condemning the lands of the great haciendas to be divided among the poor. He read, considering that the principal case of the discontent among the people in our state, which forced them to spring to arms in the year 1910, was the absolute lack of individual properties, and that the rural classes have no means of subsistence in the present, nor any hope for the future, except to serve as peons on the haciendas of the great landowners who have monopolized the soil of the state. Considering that the principal branch of our national riches is agriculture, and that there can be no true progress in agriculture without the majority of farmers have a personal interest in making the earth produce. Considering, finally, that the rural towns have been reduced to the deepest misery because the common lands which they once owned have gone to augment the property of the nearest hacienda, especially under the dictatorship of Diaz, with which the inhabitants of the state lost their economic, political, and social independence, then passed from the rank of citizens to that of slaves, without the government being able to lift the morale level through education, because the hacienda where they lived is private property. Therefore, the governor of the state of Domingo declares it a public necessity that the inhabitants of the towns and villages be the owners of the agricultural lands. When the paymaster had painfully waded through all the provisions that followed, telling how the land was to be applied for, etc., there was a silence. That, said Martinez, is the Mexican Revolution. It's just what Villa's doing in Chihuahua, I said. It's great. You fellows can have a farm now. An amused chuckle ran around the circle. Then a little bald-headed man with yellow-stained whiskers sat up and spoke. Not us, he said. Not the soldiers. After a revolution is done, it wants no more soldiers. It is the pacificos who will get the land, those who did not fight, and the next generation. He paused and spread his torn sleeves to the fire. I was a school teacher, he explained, so I know that revolutions, like republics, are ungrateful. I have fought 3 years. At the end of the first revolution, that great man, Father Madero, invited the soldiers to the capital. He gave us clothes and food and bullfights. We returned to our homes and found the greedy again in power. It ended the war and with 45 pesos. Or I ended the war with 45 pesos, said a man. You were lucky. continued the school teacher. No, it is not the troopers, the starved, unfed common soldiers who profit by the revolution. Officers, yes, some, for they got fat on the blood of the patria. But we, no. What on earth are you fighting for? I cried. I have two little ones, he answered, and they will get their land, and they will have other little sons. They too will never want for food. The little man grinned. We have a proverb in Guadalajara. Do not wear a shirt of 11 yards, for he who wants to be a redeemer will be crucified. I've got no little son, said 14-year-old Gil Tomas amid shouts of laughter. I'm fighting so I can get a 33 rifle or a 30-30 rifle from some dead federal and a good horse that belonged to a millionaire. Pueblo, just for fun, I asked a trooper with a photo button of Modero pinned to his coat who that was. Pues, ¿quién sabe, señor? He replied, my captain told me he was a great saint. I fight because it is not so hard as to work. How often are you fellows paid? We were paid 3 pesos just 9 months ago tonight, said the schoolmaster, and they all nodded. We are the real volunteers. The gente of Villa are professionals. Then Luis Martinez got a guitar and sang a beautiful little love song, which he said a prostitute had made up one night in a bordel. The last thing I remember of that memorable night was Gino Guereca lying near me in the dark talking. Tomorrow, he said, I shall take you to the lost gold mines of the Spaniards. They are hidden in a canyon in the western mountains. Only the Indians know of them, and the Indians go there sometimes with knives to dig out the raw gold out of the ground. We'll be rich. So yeah, we'll go ahead and end that episode there. So again, it's more thoughts about what they are fighting for as revolutionaries. And you can see there's certain figures in the revolution who are looked upon as great heroes. Pancho Villa, often idolized. You know, you could hear it in the song they sang. And then they talked a bit about Francisco Madero. How he is looked up to by many because it's like in what looked like the actual end of the revolution, although the revolution itself would continue or restart, I guess you could say. He offered to help the common man. trying to offer them things to make their lives a little better. But yeah. Yeah, it's so again we're getting a peek into the life of the soldiers and their thought processes. The next chapter, the coming of the Colorados, Meester's flight, and I doubt it's an airplane flight. It's probably an escape from the danger. We've got Elisabetta. Part 2, Francisco Villa. So we're not far from him actually meeting with Francisco Villa himself, Pancho Villa. Up to this point, he's been on the ground with the common everyday soldiers, experiencing life with them. So, yeah. And just like anywhere else in the world, even today, the rich own so much more. But one of the things the common Mexican wants is a division of the land more equitably amongst individuals. So, they can grow their own crops and not be beholden to a rich master who actually owns the land. But she listened to many of the revolutionaries. They talk about it as their children who will earn that opportunity. Now, remember, a lot of what's being talked about is Pancho Villa. But even further south in Mexico, you have Emiliano Zapata literally going after these big haciendas. And he seems to be more of the I am the quiet man, I do things without big major announcements or anything. Pancho Villa is the more flashy, more showy. He's like, let's get in there and take the very I don't really want to say boastful, but the very he enjoys what he does. Fighting for either way though, they both fight for the average Mexican. But yeah, we'll end this here. As always, educate thyself, think, read, study, learn. Someone tell you something you have trouble believing, ask them to cite their sources. Thank you all for watching. I'll see you all in the next episode. Until then, later.